something extraordinary. As she went to wash the blood away, the skin beneath, where the blood had dried, looked different, younger, smoother. The fine lines that had begun to appear around her knuckles seemed to have vanished. The age spots that had started to mark her hands were gone. It was as if the blood had worked some kind of miracle, erasing years from her flesh in a matter of hours. Elizabeth stared at her reflection in her silver mirror, turning her hand this way and that in the candlelight, studying the impossible transformation. She had stumbled upon something that modern science now understands with crystal clarity. Fresh blood contains growth factors, stem cells, and proteins that can temporarily plump and rejuvenate skin at the cellular level. She had discovered what Silicon Valley billionaires now pay millions of dollars for: young blood transfusions and plasma treatments for anti-aging, the cutting edge of modern medicine. But Elizabeth, living in an age of superstition and primitive medical understanding, believed she had unlocked the secret of eternal youth itself, and she was determined to explore this discovery to its fullest, darkest potential. She began having servant girls brought to her private chambers for what she carefully termed beauty treatments. These weren't the massages with scented oils or herbal baths that other noble women enjoyed. Elizabeth would have the girls restrained on specially constructed chairs, their arms extended over silver basins that gleamed in the flickering candlelight. She would make small, precise cuts with a jeweled dagger that had been blessed by priests. Small cuts at first, just enough to collect blood in those silver vessels that would soon become instruments of terror. Elizabeth would bathe her hands and face in the warm blood while it was still fresh and vital, rubbing it into her skin like the most expensive cream imported from the Orient. She would let it dry into a crimson mask before washing it away with rose water, revealing skin that looked visibly younger and more radiant, and it worked. Terrifyingly, horrifyingly, it actually worked with results that seemed to mock the very laws of nature. Chapter 2. The Escalation. Elizabeth entered her 40s and then her 50s. The subtle treatments that had once been sufficient were no longer enough to hold back the relentless march of time. The small cuts and modest bloodletting that had initially preserved her youth began to lose their effectiveness. As her body aged despite her desperate efforts, she needed more blood, fresher blood, younger blood from girls who had barely tasted life. She began specifically targeting the most beautiful servant girls from the surrounding villages, sending her agents to seek out maidens of exceptional beauty, believing with growing obsession that their youth and vitality were more potent, more capable of reversing the aging process. She developed elaborate, ritualistic ceremonies around the bloodletting, convinced through her twisted logic that fear and pain somehow purified the blood and made it more effective as an anti-aging elixir. The girls were first brought to beautifully appointed chambers decorated with silk, tapestries and golden candelabras, rooms that looked like they belonged in a fairy tale. But these chambers hid instruments of torture designed specifically for Elizabeth's purposes. Iron Maiden devices that could hold victims motionless. Chains and shackles crafted by the castle's blacksmith to Elizabeth's exact specifications. Tables with drainage channels carved into the wood to collect every precious drop of blood. Imagine being one of those girls, innocent and hopeful. You arrive at the castle on a cart pulled by oxen, carrying your few possessions in a cloth bundle, hoping for steady work that will send coins back to your struggling family. The castle seems like something from a dream. Massive stone walls, towers that scrape the sky, gardens filled with exotic flowers. You're told you'll be serving the most beautiful woman in all of Hungary. a countess who lives like a queen instead. You're taken to chambers that initially dazzle you with their beauty rooms, decorated with silk tapestries, depicting scenes of paradise. Walls lined with mirrors in golden frames, tables laden with jeweled cups and silver plates. The woman who greets you does indeed look like an angel, with skin like fresh snow and eyes like precious stones. But as the door closes behind you with a sound like thunder, you realize this angel is preparing to drain your life away drop by drop. And your screams will echo off stone walls that have heard too many screams before. The other servants, the few who survived long enough to learn the truth, whisper that she's made a deal with the devil himself, trading innocent souls for eternal beauty. But you know the truth is somehow worse. She's just human. A woman so consumed by vanity and terror of aging that she's willing to murder children for the sake of maintaining her appearance. Elizabeth installed special bathtubs crafted from silver and iron, designed specifically for her blood baths, with drainage systems that could be easily cleaned and refilled. She had intricate plumbing systems built throughout the castle to dispose of the evidence quickly and efficiently, with secret passages that led to underground chambers where bodies could be stored until they could be disposed of in mass. Graves hidden in the forest. She employed a carefully selected team of accomplices who helped capture, torture, and dispose of the bodies. Servants bound to her by fear, blackmail, and enormous payments of gold. This wasn't the work of a madwoman lost in delusion. This was methodical, calculated, systematic murder for the sake of beauty, planned and executed with the efficiency of a military campaign. Chapter 3: The Science. Behind the horror, here's what makes Elizabeth's story truly chilling and separates it from mere folklore. Her method actually had a legitimate scientific basis that wouldn't be understood by medical science for another 4 centuries. Fresh blood, particularly from young, healthy individuals, contains a complex cocktail of beneficial compounds, growth factors like IGF-1 and VEGF that stimulate cellular regeneration and repair, encouraging the production of new, healthy cells to replace damaged ones. These factors can trigger collagen production, improve skin elasticity, and reduce the appearance of fine lines and wrinkles in ways that modern cosmetic medicine is still trying to fully replicate. Proteins, including albumin and various globulins, that can temporarily tighten and firm skin tissue, creating an immediate lifting effect that can last for hours or even days. These same proteins are now synthesized in laboratories and used in expensive skincare treatments that cost thousands of dollars per session. Hormones and enzymes that affect skin texture and appearance at the molecular level, including substances that can improve blood circulation to the skin, enhance the delivery of nutrients to skin cells, and accelerate the natural healing and renewal processes that keep skin looking young and healthy. Iron and other essential nutrients that can improve complexion, reduce pallor, and give skin a healthy, vibrant glow that artificial cosmetics can only imitate. The iron in fresh blood is in a form that can be readily absorbed and utilized by skin tissue, providing benefits that oral iron supplements cannot match. Modern dermatologists routinely use similar principles in treatments like vampire facials, where patients' own blood is drawn, processed to concentrate the growth factors and platelets, then injected back into their skin. Platelet-rich plasma treatments, microneedling with blood serum, and other blood-based therapies are now common in high-end medical spas around the world. Elizabeth had discovered through horrific trial and error spread across decades of experimentation, something that would take medical science 400 years to understand and replicate safely and ethically. She was, in her own twisted way, centuries ahead of her time in understanding the anti-aging potential of blood-based treatments. But she didn't stop at topical applications. Elizabeth began drinking the blood of her victims, believing that internal consumption would preserve her from the inside out, creating a fountain of youth that flowed through her very veins. She developed a taste for it, becoming almost addicted to the metallic flavor, preferring blood from virgin girls that she believed was purer and more potent in its youth-preserving properties. She was essentially performing crude blood transfusions and blood consumption therapy centuries before such practices existed in medical science, discovering through murderous experimentation that young blood could indeed have rejuvenating effects on an aging body. Modern research has shown that young blood transfusions can have measurable anti-aging effects in laboratory animals, and human trials are currently underway. The truly horrifying part: it was working well enough to keep her looking decades younger than her actual age, providing tangible results that reinforced her belief that she had discovered the secret to eternal youth, and justifying, in her twisted mind, the murder of hundreds of innocent girls. Chapter 4: The Price of Perfection. But Elizabeth's obsession with maintaining her impossible beauty came with costs that even her vast wealth and political power couldn't cover indefinitely. She needed a constant, ever-increasing supply of young women to maintain her blood-soaked routine, which meant constantly covering up disappearances that were becoming impossible to explain away. Entire villages began to notice that their daughters were vanishing. Parents would send their girls to work at the castle and never see them again. Local priests started asking uncomfortable questions during sermons. Traveling merchants began spreading rumors about the mysterious fate of servant girls who entered Elizabeth's service. She spent astronomical fortunes, enough to buy entire towns on accomplices who would help her procure victims and dispose of bodies. She paid bribes to local officials who might otherwise investigate the disappearances. She funded hush money to families who asked too many questions about their missing daughters. She maintained an entire network of corruption that stretched across multiple kingdoms, all devoted to hiding her crimes and ensuring her supply of innocent blood. Her castle became a carefully orchestrated slaughterhouse, disguised as a noble house, with secret rooms designed specifically for torture and murder, drainage systems that could wash away evidence, and hidden passages that allowed bodies to be moved without detection. The logistics of her operation were staggering. She needed to capture victims, hold them prisoner, extract their blood while keeping them alive as long as possible, dispose of hundreds of bodies, and maintain the facade of a respectable noblewoman, all at the same time. The psychological toll on Elizabeth herself was immense and growing worse with each passing year. She became increasingly paranoid, trusting absolutely no one, seeing potential threats and betrayal in every shadow. She couldn't form real relationships with anyone because every person in her life fell into one of two categories. They were either a potential victim whose blood she might need, or they were a potential threat who might expose her secret and destroy her carefully constructed world. She lived in beautiful isolation, surrounded by unimaginable luxury rooms filled with gold and silver, the finest foods and wines, clothing made from silk and precious gems, but connected to no other human being in any meaningful way. She had traded her humanity for beauty, her capacity for love for the promise of eternal youth. her very soul for a reflection in the mirror that would never age. And when the aging process finally caught up with her, when she was eventually imprisoned and cut off from her supply of innocent blood, the transformation was devastating to witness. Witnesses who saw her after her arrest said she aged decades in a matter of months, as if time itself was collecting payment for all the years she had stolen. Her skin, once smooth as marble, became like parchment, dry and yellowed and covered in liver spots. Her lustrous hair went completely white almost overnight and began falling out in handfuls. Her graceful posture collapsed under the weight of all the years she had tried to steal from time itself. The beauty that had cost hundreds of lives faded away like morning mist, leaving behind a broken, ancient woman who had sacrificed everything for vanity. Act 3. The reflection tonight. As you stand in your bathroom with its modern conveniences and gentle LED lighting, as you cleanse your face with soap made from ingredients that have been tested for safety and effectiveness, as you apply moisturizer containing compounds that science has proven can help your skin without harming anyone else, remember Elizabeth Báthory standing in her castle's blood-soaked chambers. Picture her in those final moments of her ritual, standing before her silver mirror in a room lit by dozens of candles, washing her hands and face with the blood of innocent girls, convinced she was achieving eternal beauty while the screams of her victims still echoed in the air around her. Imagine the moment she looked in that mirror and saw not beauty, but the reflection of a monster who had traded her humanity for the illusion of youth. Elizabeth wasn't a supernatural creature born from fairy tales or horror stories. She was a woman, flesh and blood, like you and me, trapped by the same pressures we face today, the crushing terror of aging in a world that values youth above wisdom, the obsession with physical perfection in a society that judges worth by appearance, the desperate belief that beauty equals value, and that losing your looks means losing everything that makes you matter. In a world where women's entire value was tied exclusively to their appearance, where aging meant becoming invisible and powerless, where beauty was literally the difference between respect and irrelevance, she chose murder over accepting the natural process of growing older. She chose to become a monster rather than become what her society considered worthless, an aging woman. But here's what makes her story even more tragic and relevant to our modern world. She was centuries ahead of her time scientifically, discovering principles of anti-aging medicine that we're only now beginning to understand. But she was morally bankrupt in ways that would have been condemned even in her own brutal era. She discovered through systematic murder what modern medicine has achieved through ethical research and consensual treatment. If Elizabeth had been born in our era, she could have achieved similar results through legal, consensual treatments available in any major city: vampire facials, plasma therapy, growth factor treatments, blood-based cosmetic procedures. All of the science behind her horrific experiments is now available safely and ethically. She could have had the youth-preserving benefits of blood-based treatments without becoming history's most prolific female serial killer. Instead, she became a cautionary tale written in the blood of an estimated 650 young women, each with her own dreams and hopes and families who mourned their disappearance. She murdered her way through 3 decades of pursuit of eternal youth, becoming a monster who died alone in a tower room. Her beauty finally faded, her crimes finally exposed, having learned too late that the most expensive beauty treatment of all is living with the consequences of what you're willing to do to stay. We still face the same temptations today, perhaps even more intensely than Elizabeth did. We live in an age of social media where every photo is scrutinized, where aging is treated like a disease to be cured, where the pressure to maintain youthful appearance has reached levels that would have seemed impossible even to someone as obsessed as Elizabeth Báthory. We have influencers promoting treatments that could harm or kill, all in the name of achieving impossible beauty standards. We have surgical procedures that carry significant risks, injectable treatments that can cause permanent damage, and experimental therapies that promise eternal youth at the cost of our health and sometimes our lives. The technology is safer than Elizabeth's bloodbaths, but the desperation and the willingness to risk everything for beauty remains eerily the same. We have people spending their life savings on cosmetic procedures, risking their health for the promise of looking younger, destroying their natural features in pursuit of artificial perfection that ages worse than natural beauty ever could. We have a culture that teaches people to hate their aging faces in the mirror, to see wrinkles as failures and grey hair as something shameful that must be hidden. The next time you feel that familiar pressure to try an extreme beauty treatment, to spend money you don't have on procedures that promise impossible results, to hate the face in your mirror because it shows the evidence of a life well lived, remember Elizabeth Báthory. Remember that true beauty comes from living a life you don't have to hide from anyone, from forming connections with people who see you as more than just a face in their Instagram feed, from the wisdom and confidence that comes with accepting your humanity and the natural process of aging. Remember that the most beautiful people you know aren't necessarily the youngest or the most physically perfect. They're the ones whose faces light up when they smile, whose eyes sparkle with intelligence and kindness, whose presence makes you feel better about yourself and the world around you. Let me know in the comments what shocked you most about Elizabeth's bloodbaths and her twisted pursuit of eternal youth. Have you ever felt so afraid of aging that you considered treatments that could be dangerous? Have you ever looked in the mirror and felt that same desperate fear that drove Elizabeth to murder? Your stories help us all feel less alone in these very human struggles with time and beauty, and sharing them creates the kind of genuine connection that makes people truly beautiful, regardless of their age. Sleep well tonight, knowing you live in an age where staying young doesn't require stealing youth from others, where beauty treatments don't require victims, where growing older can be seen as a privilege denied to Elizabeth's 6850 victims who never got the chance to experience the wisdom that comes with age, the joy of watching children grow up, the satisfaction of a life lived fully rather than a life spent desperately trying to stop time. Sweet dreams, my dear friends. May your beauty come from kindness rather than cruelty, from wisdom rather than vanity, from connections with others rather than isolation in pursuit of perfection. May you age gracefully and gratefully, understanding that every line on your face tells the story of moments you've lived, people you've loved, and experiences that have shaped you into who you are today. And may you never forget that true immortality comes not from preserving your appearance, but from the positive impact you have on the world and the love you leave behind. Something Elizabeth Báthory, for all her terrible beauty, never understood.